everybody. It's Saturday, final Halloween week. But we're not here to talk about that today. We are here to talk about our review. And this is Safi and Marco Dish Out on the Movies, telling you what we thought of Season 10 of American Horror Story. Season 10, like I said, which was a double feature. And the first part was called Red Tide. And the second part was Death Valley. Just initially, I'll tell you, it was a disappointment. And that's probably putting it mildly, but the way Marco is, he'll probably slash it to smithereens, or I should say blow it up to smithereens or slash it to lots of pieces. But we have already basically done that during the whole thing. But, well, I'll let him start and then I'll add what I have to say. But just my overall view is that it was disappointing because it was too little time was devoted to each part. Therefore, what would you call it? It was just, it made it too short and therefore given scant attention or just dropped storylines and got rid of every character they could get rid of, in both of them actually. And that's, to me, that doesn't make for a good story. It doesn't help it or anything. So go ahead, Marco.
This is season 10, and it really doesn't feel like season 10 at all. You know, a season 10 should be like a landmark season. You know, you can have your bad seasons here and there. Like, you can have your, season 5 or your season 7. But when it comes to season 10 should be like something really spectacular. And I feel like instead of making something spectacular, they literally just didn't care at all. And they didn't put any effort into making this season. I can't see any effort put anywhere, honestly, except for the acting from some of the actors. So I really think that the whole season is not only a letdown, but it's a waste of time. And when you look at past seasons, it's sad because I haven't seen all the seasons yet, which it's going to be really tough for me because I really don't like watching the same thing over and over again. And that's what it feels like with the show. It feels like every single season, from what I've seen so far, is like the same thing over and over again, where you have a great cast of characters, and it's rushed, the story is rushed, and the plot reveals are not satisfying in any way, and the endings are not satisfying, and they're just chopped off and shitty, and so to just imagining watching all these seasons, like, ugh. Like, if this season is any indication of all those other seasons, then I'm in for a shitstorm. I've only seen the first two and this one, just like Safi. And, it's funny because all three seasons suffer from the same problems. Not necessarily like the same degrees of the problems, but they all three have the same issues. And so I find that interesting that for 10 years or more, they've made these seasons and they've never improved at all. They've never made any sort of change to their formula. They've just done the same formula over and over, from what it seems. And so I think that this season is it's just what happens when you don't get criticism. I don't know how much the show got criticism before, but it seems like they didn't get much of it because this season was so bad, it made me want to throw the television in the dumpster and then stomp on it until there's broken TV everywhere. That's how bad this season was. It was a huge waste of time and money and effort and energy and everything. And, when you look at the concept of a double feature, well, a double feature is supposed to be where you have two complete and distinctive stories. And so, like, another thing is that both of them, spoiler alert, both of them have extremely unsatisfying endings. Endings that are so rushed and so shitty that it's incomprehensible. Well, the thing is, when you have a double feature, you would never have two stories with unsatisfying endings. And technically, it's three stories with unsatisfying endings. Because in the second half, you have the black and white story that has an unsatisfying ending.
Oh, yeah.
And you have the future story that has an unsatisfying ending. So that's three stories with very unsatisfying endings. And usually when you have a double feature, what you would want to do is you would have one of them have a happy ending, or at least not like a happy ending, but like a satisfying and complete ending, and the other one could be very like a Debbie Downer, but still has to be complete. And neither of these were complete stories. If you turn these stories in to anyone to look at, like, you know, smart people, if the smart person looked at these stories, they wouldn't count these stories as complete stories. They wouldn't say, oh, I really liked Red Tide because, you know, it was a full story and all the characters had arcs. Like, nope, not at all. There was not only an incomplete story, but the show basically just took these shock turns at all these points, and they really didn't advance the story at all. They just kind of were there. Like, they just had all these plot points happen for no reason. Like, they had that plot point in episode 3 where Harry is out with this little backpack like he's in a video game. And, you know, I thought actually that they should make a video game of this story, and that should be the video game. And you can just imagine walking around as Harry with the backpack on.
Looking for people to kill so you can get their blood.
You have to take them down, and you have to, like, find more thermoses, and you have to find little, what are those things called? Those containers, the Tupperware containers. Like, I ran out of containers.
I'll have to go to the thrift store to pick one up.
There's some Tupperware that I can grab. There's going to be a timer that runs out, and I got to grab the Tupperware really quickly before the blood timer runs out. Well, there was a scene that was basically ripped straight out of Pulp Fiction, where he gets taken hostage by these two serial killer rapists, and you know, that was literally straight out of Pulp Fiction. And it was literally just for a shock turn. And it was completely useless in the grand scheme of things. There were so many useless plot points and useless things. And instead of them being like proper red herrings, they were basically just plot distractions to make you like, you know, that's what we discussed. We discussed how in that one, the first episode of Death Valley, you had the black girl, and she was talking about the venomous stuff, and it's like that literally never came into play at all. And you'd think that would have come into play somehow, like some sort of a weird plot point somewhere, but it never did. And so you had all these things like that just never went anywhere. And not only that, but you had all these annoying characters, too, that really didn't fit in the show. Like, in the first half, you had Ursula. And she was basically a cartoon. And she was annoying, she was awful, and she was trash.
And guess what? That is the actress's favorite character she's ever played.
What? Are you serious, Safi?
I'm serious. I saw that this morning. Because I was looking up the titles, making sure I had the titles right.
Guys, these people are fucking retarded. That's really bad.
Really? I read that. I think that was a quote.
You're not being serious.
Quoted as saying this. I think I have all these specific points to make like you, but at least I can add that.
Is it Ursula?
Yep. And she was awful. And my thing is, the way it turned out, you know, they killed off everybody. I mean, everybody. Just think of all characters they killed off.
No, what about Carrie Fisher's granddaughter? You know, the random tattoo shop character?
Well, we never saw her.
That she just disappeared, basically, out of thin air.
She just disappears, but we can't say that she was killed.
Well, that's what I was going to say, that, you know, there were also characters that were there, and you thought that they would play some sort of an important role, but they didn't do anything at all.
And that's too bad, really, for her, because she has that experience.
To me, it's basically because it's so rushed. It's so rushed that they can't have room to do anything that they really could do.
And that's what I said, too.
I could see an entire series being made based off of Red Tide alone. Like with the Macaulay Culkin character, with Crybaby, and with all those other people. You know, I could have seen a full series of that show. You know, you could write a full series of that show. You know, they even had this completely irrelevant prequel episode that really didn't add anything whatsoever. I mean, Safi said it was amazing, but let's be honest, everyone. That episode literally did nothing. It literally added nothing.
No,
because
it would have been more appropriate if it would have been a longer series.
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing is that it wasn't, and so that prequel episode about the vampires, it added nothing, because those characters, they were so useless that they just get dispensed of in 2 seconds in the finale.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the mother basically was dropped.
Yeah, she was another useless character.
And then you have the two vampires, the older lady and that guy. When the people who danced at the club, and the ones that encouraged all these people to take the stupid pill. Oh, and then so who you have left in the end?
The chemist.
You have the chemist.
And now that's another thing, everyone. They didn't have to have a character around the person who created these pills.
No.
But they did, because they wanted to have their little political agendas. Because this character, the chemist, she was complete trash. She was so one-dimensional that you could put your finger on her face and she'd fall down, because she's like a cardboard cutout. And but in the finale, you know, they have their little political agenda moment where she kills all these police officers, which was completely unrealistic and completely kind of like embarrassing. Like, you just see that sequence and you're reminded of like how stupid and like in a bubble and like really out of touch these celebrities are. These people who make movies and television in Hollywood have no idea what the real world is like. And so this show really reflects that, because the season, like, there's no development with any of the characters. Like with Harry, he never develops into anything. With the mother, she never develops into anything, because she falls down and then she is in the hospital and she's pregnant and then she dies. And then the daughter, she never develops into anything. She's trash.
Well, it's going to be, I would say, because she joins up with Ursula to get rid of her parents.
Ursula never develops into anything. There's no character development whatsoever.
Well, Ursula better watch her back, and I would say the chemist too, because the little girl will grow up.
That would be an F, people. That would be an F. If you don't have three-dimensional characters, that's an automatic fail. And this whole show is an automatic fail. And then you have the second half, which is called Death Valley, which, you know, Death Valley literally has nothing to do with the show. Well, little to nothing to do with the show. And we didn't even get to find out why they were experimenting on cows either. Remember that whole thing in the first episode where there's like all these cows that are mutilated but they're still alive? Remember that?
Oh.
We never found out why they were there or what they had to do with anything. It was literally just for plot convenience so that the characters would get scared out of Death Valley. And, you know, the second half was so bad that there's really nothing to say. Like, Like, what could you say? It's just so bad. It's so embarrassingly bad.
Well,
It's so bad, Safi.
I just thought
What a
the
joke.
the main thing that characterizes the second part was I titled it Missed Opportunities.
Yeah.
And that was not expounding on link ups to season 2, which where aliens were kidnapping main characters, and the whole thing with babies being born, but they weren't alien, they were human. And so what's going on there? And then linking it to the first part of the season, the red tide part. They could have, somebody suggested, Marco said in his research, that Harry could have been writing a story, and this could be the story he was writing. And maybe he didn't get it finished, and that's why it was so unfinished. So,
But that would be even more embarrassing because that would imply that this story was a story that he wrote while he was on the genius pill. And I'm sorry, everyone, especially the bad writers, that Death Valley story
it's not a genius episode.
is not a genius story.
No.
And so there's no way you could be on the black pill and be writing shitty stories like that are jokes.
So maybe he couldn't do that one, but at least link it up to the second season, because how do you have that? I mean, it's just missed, to me, it's just missed opportunities.
We got a package, everyone. We got a FedEx package, so that's the noise in the background. Safi, do you want to take care of that? You want to go outside real quick and get it?
No, it'll be fine. It's it's one of my what would you call it? My stuff to sell.
Well, okay, so there's so many problems with this. So let's talk about the good things, so that people can't say like, "You guys are just haters."
Well,
Like,
I'll say some things.
like
First of all, it introduced us to I'd say some really good actors, and I love seeing Macaulay Culkin again. I thought he did an excellent job. It was a good in the first part. It was also the Crybaby actually played in both seasons, both parts of the season. She actually played characters that were funny or very serious and meaningful, and unlike what some of the characters she's played in previous seasons, I thought that was refreshing. And I read too that during the first part of the season, Macaulay Culkin's, when they were making it, his first child was born, so they were celebrating that. So that could be another.
well, what they should have done was just keep that off the set, because they obviously needed to focus on writing better stories.
I guess so. And the little girl.
I'm just kidding.
She was not, maybe her character was not so great, but I like the fact that they focused on playing violin, because
I didn't.
for the first part of my life, I played violin all the time, so I thought it was fun for me. And they played a lot of good music. I mean, interesting music that people would not normally hear. And the second part, the thing I liked about it was the history part. Even though I started out in Kansas, I lived in Kansas City, which is Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas. It crosses state lines, so it incorporates both states. And I lived in the Kansas side, and so part of my life was spent in Kansas. And the Eisenhowers, I really didn't know a lot about them, except they were like dull. They really
No, they
wasn't.
weren't.
They weren't much.
No, they weren't.
Well, she was.
No.
And, well, he was a general, I know, and everything, but I mean, they were very low key. They weren't out there, and I mean, you can't.
Yeah, that's because they were good, and they weren't just.
Right, getting into trouble and getting into scandals. Yeah, they were scandal free as far as I know.
Yeah,
And-
that's because they're the best, and you know, I like Ike. You know, you don't like Ike because
No, I don't. I like him. I thought and I enjoyed the actors. who played some of the characters. I guess the worst part was that porn crap that came out of the straight and the gay people's mouths. That's the part that really screwed it up for me. And then I was upset, like I said, about the missed opportunities, which were tie-ins and link-ups.
It was sort of another agenda thing, because basically it's something where, like, they've been doing this since the first season too. Once again, where, like, they have this very crude dialogue that's really sort of like unnecessary, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. But if you say anything about it, you're labeled a homophobe.
No,
and
but it wasn't just them. It was the straight girl too.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care about that. They don't care about that.
It didn't have any impact or meaning for anything that was in the story.
Well, it's basically an agenda thing where they feel
I don't know
like
what the agenda is.
they can say whatever they want, and then if you say anything back, you're an isterophobe.
No, well, I'm no phobe. I'm just somebody who believes in good taste.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and this whole season was in bad taste,
well,
because
I don't know
this
about that.
This whole season tasted like trash.
Yeah. The thing where Mamie's having sex with the robot about a
really
foot away from her
insulting.
husband, that was not so good.
That was really like cringeworthy television.
That was another bad taste.
Yeah.
Really. Come on now. And so, but it is what it is, because it's over. So.
Well, it's never going to be over, because that season will live in infamy.
Well,
on Hulu.
I'm just telling you, if I would have been the parent and had a watch party, or even watched it in my house and watched those kids, they're not really kids, but those young adults talk like that, I probably would have gone out and thrown up all over the place. I mean, and if I'd had a watch party, I would have been so mortified with the family and friends. I couldn't even imagine what they would have thought.
Did you see my son in American Horror Story last night? He and this other guy sat in a restaurant talking about their man parts and talking about sexual stuff, and it was really like a progressive scene, because like we never see that in television anymore.
Thank God. I don't want to ever see it again.
We need to move past these social norms and start having all characters talk like that. Like, why didn't Eisenhower talk about his erectile dysfunction and things like that? Like, that would have been really progressive, next level television.
Yeah, I just never want to
Safi?
see that bad taste crap again.
Well, you will, because we have all these other seasons where they'll probably be even worse in terms of that.
I personally implore Murphy and Fulchuk never to have that in their season again.
I would like to tell them to go jump off a cliff, like the cliff, and to jump into the ocean where Red Tide was filmed. And then sort of like just sort of float around in the ocean until they come up with a good idea for another season, because they're such bad writers that, like, both of their names are on this fucking season too, and there's really nothing good to say besides like some of the actors did good jobs, and the concept for the first half, the Red Tide half. It was sort of like a half-baked concept, because they really didn't think anything about it through.
Okay.
Like, they didn't think about, well,
No,
what if the pills didn't work? And why is it that the chemist has worked on these pills for 5 years and she's never done anything to improve them?
Yeah.
There's things like that. There's all sorts of questions like that. You could just go on and on. But it's a waste of breath.
Okay, well, so why don't we give it our food review?
Well, I want to shit talk Death Valley some more, because I've been focusing on Red Tide. Okay.
Yeah, you have.
So the highlights: number one, the actors. You know, they were good, but you know, they're kind of like dummies. You know, you can just stick your hand in them and make them say whatever you want them to say. So, like, it's really, it really all comes down to the scripts. I mean, if the scripts aren't good, the shows aren't going to be good. And in this case, the shows were trash. So, Death Valley, wow. You have the black and white story, which is basically just a checklist of comedic skits of seeing, like, and it's too bad, too, because it could have been like a Doctor Strangelove type of story, like a Doctor Strangelove type of satire story, and I was really looking forward to seeing that, because I thought, you have Eisenhower, you have all these famous political figures, but then they all get wasted. They all get completely... I mean, the whole story is just, are we going to make a deal? Is the deal good? Is the deal bad? What about the deal? Are we going to make a deal? Maybe they should have read Trump's book about, you know, the art of the deal. Because
Marco, why do you bring that up? Jesus Christ.
Because maybe he could have helped them figure out about the deal.
Oh,
you know,
please.
because that's literally what the whole fucking story was about. It was about making a deal. And, like, that's literally the whole story. Like, there's nothing else to it at all. And so what I'm saying, though, is that was a shitty story. And it was really not a story that was, once again, well thought out. You have to actually think stories out. You have to actually develop stories and not just have these sort of, like, one-off, meaningless, pointless 4-episode story. 4 episodes? Ew. You can't tell a story in 4 episodes. You're amateurs. And then you got the modern half, where it's about 4 unlikable characters who no one likes. You know, Safi loves them because she thinks they're very contemporary characters.
I didn't mind them. I just don't like the talking.
I hated them.
I don't like what they talked about. I thought it was unnecessary. Thought it was tasteless. And I did appreciate when they all had their babies, all that
I didn't.
drama that went on. I mean,
didn't.
it would just showed how crazy
It was trash
it
drama.
got. Well, I really didn't mind it at all. I actually liked them more after they did that.
I didn't.
Didn't like the trash. I didn't like the thing about taking Giardia for granted, because I have known plenty of people.
They were
we
like,
do research in a third world country.
They were like, us gays get that all the time.
Ugh.
We get Giardia all the time. It's like a common thing that happens because it's a part of our contemporary lifestyle.
And that's just crap too.
And it's just bullshit.
I don't believe it.
But
And if they had that, they would. I mean, if they really knew what that was like, they would be crying that they would have to even talk like that. Because people I knew that had that kind of, they were miserable. It's a miserable sickness, and you know what you get it from. And I don't even.
What do you get it from, Safi?
Well, in the third world, if you go to the market and you get like, let's say, vegetables. They sell vegetables there, or anything
What kind of vegetables?
that have been grown where SHIT was used as a fertilizer. And they're not washed properly because maybe they don't have hot water. Well, they have to boil it over a fire.
Maybe those vegetables.
And they don't get sanitized properly, and you get sicker than a dog.
Maybe those vegetables are ingredients in Mamie's fudge.
Marco, what are you doing? It has nothing to do with it.
She makes vegan fudge now because she's contemporary. So, as I was saying before Safi interjected with her historical research, her real life research of going there and looking at people with Giardia and being like,
I didn't look at them. I just know.
Oh, you didn't? Did you
talking
hear
to
them?
other researchers. I mean, you know, when you do research, you meet other researchers in other fields. We were in anthropology, so there's people doing geological research. There's people doing all kinds of different research, people from all over the world. And everybody's had their sickness problems of eating bad food. So I just want to say it's just not a joke. And for them to talk like it's just nothing is bullshit. And the reason why they're saying that, because they have never had it.
I hope they never get it. Wink, wink. Because if they get it, they'll be like,
Okay.
they'll be like, oops, we never should have done American Horror Story season 10 and acted like that was a good thing to be in. But I actually think that the modern story had a good concept where you have four people, they should have been like good characters, but you have four people who get abducted and they're basically trapped inside Area 51 like it's an asylum. And it was basically like Asylum Part 2. And like just the anticipation of seeing connections with season 2 was like really good to me, because that was like the whole point of it was like in season 2 aliens were sort of in the background, and then in this season where it's literally about aliens, this season 2 should be explained more and it should be in the foreground. But instead they really shit the bed and they just ruined everything. I mean, the modern story was just so unsatisfying and so badly written that it literally now has a 3 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's how bad it is.
Wow. Well, they, how many episodes, out of curiosity, did we see in season 2?
13?
So 13 to...
4. Yeah.
I rest my case.
Yeah. So what do you have to say, Safi?
I've already said what I'm going to say.
Yeah, so do your rating.
Oh, my rating
Your
is...
food rating, because we rate seasons in terms of food, everyone, just so you know.
Yeah, seasons of shows and movies. When we rate individual episodes, it's with a grade. Okay, I rated it, that time we went and got the Greek food, I had leftovers, and it was okay. Some of it was good, but I just couldn't eat a lot of it at one sitting. And we also bought these little pastries, which were like baklava. And so...
The good Greek food?
Yes, Robert or Marco, the
shit.
food that we... Remember the food we had?
Yeah, that really good Greek food, that was really good.
Well, anyway, I put it in the refrigerator. I wrapped it all up, but I put it in our little refrigerator. Well, guess what? Our little refrigerator died. And when it died, it spewed out this chemical smell. And
it wasn't just the smell, it spewed it out all over the stuff, too.
Everything in the refrigerator.
I had packages of pineapple chunks, and I had to wash them off because the stuff was squirted all over them.
Well, there's just the fumes. And so I had to throw everything out, basically. Yeah. And if we had anything like a bottle, even... I don't know. I think I may have thrown that out too. I washed it off and emptied them, put them in the recyclables. But anyway, it just... So that's what it was like to watch this episode. I mean, it all ended in not a good feeling. So that's my review.
Well, my review is... I have 2 reviews, and you're going to really like the second one. You're probably going to throw up. Well, so, Red Tide, I think that Red Tide was not better because both of them were trash. So, I could, even though Red Tide did have some better elements in it, it still was really bad. And so, there was this one time where we went to Chicago, and we went to see a play called called Hell Cab. And we saw it, and well, afterwards we were trying to figure out what to have for dinner, and we wanted to have a Vietnamese restaurant, but then someone else wanted to have the shitty, pretentious Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
And so we went in this Italian restaurant, and it was so gross. It was like vomitocious, like kill yourself food that's just so gross it just makes you want to jump in front of a hell cab practically, because it makes you so sick to eat it. So they gave you... So first off, I made the mistake. I got lobster ravioli.
Ugh.
And and it's very fitting because it's from the sea, and so it's in
not
theme.
fitting for Chicago.
Well, no, it's in theme with the Red Tide story, how
Okay,
it takes place in that area.
Okay, I don't think you should order lobster unless you're on the East Coast.
And now I got it, and and remember the plate, Safi?
Yes.
It was this giant plate with this little tiny compartment in the middle that was like smaller than a little girl's palm.
It was like for a teacup.
Yeah, it was so like it just made me like want to like it made me like scratch my head in confusion.
And it cost a fortune.
It cost like $30 for that tiny little teacup of shit. And so I ate this lobster ravioli.
Ugh.
And the ravioli was undercooked. So it was overcooked and it tasted frozen. And the lobster inside did not taste like lobster very much.
Who knows what it was.
And it tasted frozen as well. And just it was such a gross lobster. And so that's what this Red Tide was. It was a little tiny compartment of lobster ravioli. And so what I ended up having to do was someone else got this pizza. And I ended up just trying to eat some of that pizza. And the pizza was gross too. So basically all that was good for dinner was the piece of chocolate cake for dessert. Which, I really don't like that when you have a shitty dinner and then you have like a good dessert because it feels like unearned. And so, well, the dessert is not included because that would have been the finale if it was good, but it was lobster ravioli. Remember the place, Safi?
Yes, I do.
What's it called?
Oh, I don't know.
Damn
know.
it. We could have.
It was fun. We were in downtown Chicago. Marco was needing to watch these plays.
Yeah, for shitty band credit. You had
band credit. That's right.
You had to go see plays and spend money on plays.
But it was fun. We went to
credit
Chicago.
in a class.
Downtown Chicago, and it was late, like Saturday night or Friday night, so people were out, and it was getting near Christmas, and it was great, and to see these plays.
It was great, and I met a hobo, and he was a very nice hobo.
It was just so much fun though. The place was packed. The play was packed, and it was kind of almost a participant thing in a way, a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was in like it was a theater
It
that
was
wasn't a really nice theater.
It was a tiny theater. And so it was a very intimate and good experience.
Yes, it was. And so it would have been nice to end it with a really good meal.
No, of course not.
Because somebody wanted to eat
Italian food instead of Vietnamese food.
I want to, and in Chicago, because it is a big city, you can find all these foreign places to eat that are good. Unlike here, it's a desert.
Well, I wish we could find the name of that place because I want to edit it and put it in there to make sure that they know how bad their food was. Because that's the thing with a lot of these restaurants. I've never complained, never written any reviews for them. Well, they just got a review. 0 stars out of 5. Probably like a negative star. So, Death Valley, we had Bean Boozled beans last year. Well, you know what you get Giardia from, Safi? Well, how about some Giardia flavored jelly beans?
I don't think there's Giardia flavored jelly beans.
Some shitty Bean Boozled beans. That's what Death Valley was. It's like they created a flavor called Giardia, and you just stuff your face with those jelly beans. So,
Okay.
that's my review.
All right. Well, everybody, please like and subscribe if you can. If
Subscribe! That's how they say it.
Subscribers.
They don't say subscribe, they say subscribe.
Oh, God, that's cringeworthy. Anyway, and please tell me what you thought of season 10. If you just say it was just the most wonderful thing of all, you're lying.
You're a liar.
I don't believe it for
Fanboy.
1 second.
Fanboy, liar. just like with the people who like Halloween Kills. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.